Hey, this is Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm already seeing questions in the comments that I want to answer here today, so I thought I'd start a few seconds early today. Thanks for the questions about one of the big topics in today's newsletter. Today is newsletter day, October 2nd, 2024. So if you don't get the Stonemaier Games newsletter, you can still read it on the web. There's a link in the description below. It'll also be archived on our website. I haven't put the archive link on the news page of our website yet, but I will after this live cast. So if you want to check out some of the topics I talk about today, it'll be in the newsletter, but I'll also show the newsletter over here as I'm talking about it today. So I'll get to one of those topics in a moment. I see Tyler has a question that I want to answer, but let me start with what's at the top of the newsletter today, which was Wyrmspan. So we are working on a Wyrmspan expansion. In fact, we're pretty far along in a Wyrmspan expansion right now. And let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that better. There we go. And so we're currently trying to make sure that we make enough first run copies of the game. This is a method that we use where we ask you if you think you might want to buy the game from us in the future, or buy the game in general, or buy the expansion in general, so that we can make enough copies. Rather than asking you to give us your money now, we're just going to invest in it because we believe in this product. And later on, after we've made it, we will ask you to pay for it if you want to buy it. So if you are interested in the Wyrmspan expansion, please fill out that survey. It's I think a 2-question survey, so it's really quick and easy. It just asks you if you're interested in buying the expansion and where you would buy it from if you ended up buying it. As we say here, it is primarily a more stuff expansion, and there is a little twist in it. There's I say here, an enhancement to a core mechanism and some special new dragon cards. So I'm not going to say too much about the expansion now, but I am excited about it. I think Connie has done an amazing job with the Wyrmspan expansion. And if you enjoy Wyrmspan, I think it might be right up your alley. Let's see, one of the big elements, I'll jump to the big element today. That is, I'll talk a little bit about this. So let's scroll down a little bit and see right here. So Essen Spiel is starting up today. I think it's open to most people tomorrow, but maybe some people can attend today. I think today is more of like the media day at Essen Spiel. This is a very big convention in Essen, Germany, and we have a booth there. Our booth there is 3U411. We're splitting it, Stonemaier Games with Inside Up Games, as we did last year. We had a great time with them last year, and so my coworkers Dave and Alex are at that booth. Dave is helping to run the booth. Alex is having a lot of meetings, but if you run into Alex, feel free to say hi. He will be happy to see you, I think. So at Essen Spiel, we are focusing on our new products, our new releases of 2024, which include Stamp Swap, as you can see here. We have the Apiary expansion. We have Expeditions Gears of Corruption, not the Ironclad version, but the plastic version. And we have Wyrmspan there as well, along with some Rolling Realms promos and things like that. There's a big list on our website on the events and conventions page where you can see what exactly we have at Essen Spiel. So if you're going to Essen Spiel, even if you already have all that stuff, feel free to drop by and say hi. Also, it's intended to be a low pressure booth. So we are not, even though we are technically there to sell you things, we're available to sell you things. We're also there just to welcome you into our games. So feel free to show up and participate in a demo of a game, just ask questions. Anything, you are welcome at our booth, no matter what your priorities are at Essen Spiel. The other thing that we'll have at Essen Spiel, and this is the reason that we decided to announce this today, kind of a soft announcement today, is that we have Tokaido Deluxe, the last few copies of Tokaido Deluxe at Essen Spiel. Why do we have this? It's because we have acquired the Tokaido brand of games, which includes Tokaido, Tokaido's expansions, Tokaido Duo, and Namiji, which I believe has one expansion. We've acquired all that from Funforge. Funforge decided to focus on some other IPs, and we thought we were a good fit for the Tokaido IP because it's games that play, most of the games except for Duo play up to 5 players, and they're kind of, medium weight Euro games, which is the sweet spot for Stonemaier Games. So Tokaido is now Stonemaier Games. Here, I'll flip over to the full camera here. So here's Tokaido. If you haven't played Tokaido, it is a delightful game. It is a wonderful game. We wouldn't have decided to get this brand as part of Stonemaier Games if we didn't love Tokaido. Tokaido has one of my favorite mechanisms in all games, basically. It's a one-way action selection track where you always have to move forward on the track. And you can move essentially as far as you want. You have to stop at certain ends along the way. Here's actually the board here. So So it's a very streamlined action choice system. It's a little bit similar to Tapestry, except in Tapestry you have to pay a cost as you move along the tracks, and there's more than one track in Tapestry. But it's kind of there's one track. You're going on a journey throughout Japan, doing a lot of set collection type things along the way. It's a delightful game. I really, really love Tokaido. It's a great, I would say, Gateway Plus game. Gateway Plus game. So this is going to be a Stonemaier game from now on. Currently, there are plenty of FunForge copies in the wild, and that's great. It's our version of the game will be almost identical to this version of the game. I think this was the question that was asked a little bit earlier that I wanted to answer from Tyler. So Tyler says, can we talk about the differences between what's currently out there and the Stonemaier version? The Stonemaier version will have the Stonemaier label on it instead of the FunForge label. The big difference will be that the Stonemaier version will have an Automa solo mode included. Currently, Tokaido is a 2 to 5 player game, not a 1 to 5 player game. And so we've been working with Automa over the summer to add an Automa solo mode. So in the Stonemaier version, which is now in early pre-production now, it will have a Automa solo mode. And we're also making the Automa solo mode separately. So we're making it independently. So if you already own Tokaido, or if you get excited by this announcement, you're like, oh, I'm going to go try this game, go do it. It'll be completely compatible with our version. And if you want to play the solo mode, you'll be able to get that on our web store in sometime next year, whenever it's ready. The other differences are very subtle. Like I went through the rulebook and updated some things in the rulebook, tried to make it a little bit more clear. And there's a lot in the rulebook that there's the use of whenever they use the example of a player, they say he in the Tokaido rulebook. I changed it to the gender neutral they, which is kind of a modern standard for board games, doing that, saying either you or they rather than he or she. So I changed that, and I added some text on some cards so you don't have to rely completely on the icons. For the character cards. So really no gameplay differences at all, no art differences. I think they did a fantastic job with Tokaido as is. In fact, we would not have acquired it if we didn't think that the game was already ready to go to print essentially as is, beyond some subtle clarity changes plus the solo mode. So those are the changes that we made for Tokaido. So you're welcome. Your version of Tokaido, if you already have it, will be completely compatible with anything that we make for Tokaido in the future. And I'm really excited about the future of Tokaido and Namiji and Tokaido Duo. Happy to answer any other questions there, but that is the quick recap there. It looks like Jacob actually played Tokaido just last night. That's awesome. Aaron says, is this Stonemeier's first time acquiring an existing game? We also acquired the rights to Libertalia a few years ago and then made our version of Libertalia, which was very different than what we're doing with Tokaido, because we very much revamped every aspect of Libertalia. We are not doing that with Tokaido. So that, yeah, we did that with Libertalia in a different way. Let's see. Tom says, why has the Wingspan expansion slowed to a crawl? It's been 2 years since the Asia expansion came out, and the latest email doesn't even have a 2025 as a known release date. Tom, the reason is that games and game expansions take time to make, and I don't believe in any value in rushing a designer to make something if that designer isn't ready to make it or is working on it at their own pace. And so I respect Elizabeth's time and boundaries to make Wingspan expansions on her own terms in the best way possible. Someone the other day asked, when can we expect the next Wingspan expansion? And the honest answer that I gave there is when it's ready. When it's ready, that's when we'll have it for you. We're going to try to make the best possible Wingspan expansion for you. Every time we make a Wingspan expansion, that is our goal. And when it's ready, we'll make it and we'll sell it to you. Yeah. At the heart of your question, Tom, even though I don't entirely like the way that you asked it, at the heart of your question is enthusiasm and excitement for the next Wingspan expansion, which I greatly appreciate. And so I'd also ask for your patience to be added to that enthusiasm and excitement, and the trust that there's nothing good comes from rushing an expansion. And so we are taking our time to get it right. And we, including all of us at Stonemaier Games, but especially the designer, Elizabeth Hargrave. I can say that I have played the Wingspan expansion now. It was fairly recently that I got the first files from Elizabeth, and I played them a couple times over a recent weekend. And I think what she's done with it is pretty incredible. it's going to be a really special expansion. So I'm excited to, and also during this, I should also add that we haven't been waiting to start the art for the expansion until the design is ready. So the art has been in progress for quite some time, so that when the design is ready, we can put the bird art in there and can go into print. So that is where we are right now with the Wingspan expansion. Let's see, just scrolling through and looking for other questions here. Tim says, for Tokaido, will Panda do the production? Yes, we work solely with Panda as a production partner. It is actually good, though. Tokaido brought something good to light, that Tokaido is made by, I'm blanking on the name here. Should be able to find it on here. I believe it's, I'm thinking Lion's Forge, but that's not it. It's made by a different manufacturer currently, and they have been a pleasure to work with. Now, let me find the name, because they really have been great to work with on like transitioning the files over. Let me find their name here. So let's see. Here we go. Get Lion in the name. Sorry, I'm just blanking on it. Longpack, not Lion, Longpack. So Longpack has been wonderful to work with in terms of the transition of Tokaido over to us and to Panda. And so Panda has not made Tokaido in the past, but they will make it in the future. But the silver lining here is that it's good that we have a good contact at Longpack now, because if we ever need a backup to Panda, I think I would trust Longpack to make a quality product for us. Yeah. Carlos has a question about kind of the behind the scenes stuff that happened with Tokaido. He says, was the Tokaido IP auctioned, or were you reached out to see if you were interested in acquiring it? What I think I can say fairly is that FunForge reached out to us and said, we thought you might be an interesting fit for this game. Yeah, some conversations happened between industry people, and it came up that there was this opportunity, and we talked about it with FunForge, and it worked out. Yeah. So auction, no, it was not. I don't know. It was not auctioned in, I think, a public auction type of way. Yeah. Although I don't know all the things that happened behind the scenes at FunForge. I just know that they reached out to us and said, hey, we think you might be a good partner for this. Chad says, the main component gripe I have is the score marker is really small and the card quality of the panoramas is pretty low. Are those things that you would possibly change in the future? We are going with our standard, like, high quality components for the game. I'm pretty happy with the components in Tokaido. I hear what you're saying about that. We're not changing much. The score markers are not changing. No, they aren't changing. But the card quality, I think it'll be our standard card quality that we use for games. But we are also aiming for compatibility. So any cards that need to be shuffled with expansion cards, we need that card stock to be compatible with the existing expansion, so that everything that has been made or will be made for Tokaido is consistent and compatible with each other. Yeah. Ray's asking for the history and the process. So a lot of this stuff is, I know I'm very transparent with stuff about the processes, but in this case, because there is another party involved, is not fair for me to speak for this other party, FunForge. I can just say that FunForge was looking to focus on other IPs, and they were looking for a publisher that they trusted to take Tokaido into the future. And Stonemaier came up as a possibility, and they reached out to us, and we had some conversations about it. It was maybe a 3 or 4 month process to go through that process. And they were very helpful throughout that process. So yeah, I don't think there's much I can say beyond that. I know that leaves some mystery, but really there's nothing I don't know, controversial. There's nothing secretive really that happens behind the scenes for these types of conversations. It's just when you get into the nitty-gritty of exactly like the finances and what you're talking about with those types of things, that's I feel like that's better left between the two parties, given that, again, I can only represent myself in Stonemaier Games. I can't represent FunForge. What I can do is try to do our best to bring Tokaido to the future, because I think this is a wonderful game, a wonderful brand, and I'm really excited about what we'll do in the future. And FunForge, really, even after the acquisition happened, which was a few months ago, they have been very helpful in helping us get all the files for the game and get everything transitioned to Panda. So they've been incredibly helpful before and after the process. William has a similar question. Yeah, maybe feel for, yeah, I guess I just don't, there isn't much more that I can say about the process that really, I think, speaks to what the process looks like. I can say this kind of, I think when the way that movies and TV shows portray acquisitions of brands or companies, and this isn't an acquisition of a company, we're just acquiring a brand. It happens very quickly in movies and TV shows, where usually it's like someone who has a lot of money, and they make a call, and they own the airline, they own the whatever the property is. It's much slower than that, and it's much slower than that on a legal basis, because you want to make sure that all the bases are covered for all the legal stuff that happens. And so even for what was a very quick, simple, streamlined brand acquisition for Tokaido, the legal part of it took months and months to get past. And it wasn't like a legal battle, but it was just getting all the documents in order and making sure that we were following the laws of the US and of France. So we have two different countries' acquisition-related laws in play there. So yeah, obviously I can't get into the nitty-gritty of what all that legal stuff looks like or what all the financial stuff looks like, but maybe that's the type of insight that you're looking for when you're looking for the behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe let me know if I'm on the right track there. George says, you mentioned in your last post that you've been a lifelong gamer. I'm guessing that you've played plenty of Monopoly, Clue, Risk, etc. Do you still play any of the classics? Yeah, as a kid, I played plenty of Monopoly, Risk, plenty of Clue actually too. Yeah, I don't remember playing Clue as much, but I know that we played it quite a bit. Any of the classics that I still actively play? Really, maybe two games from my childhood that I still actively play on a somewhat consistent basis are Magic the Gathering, which I got into when I was around 13 years old. Played it on and off my whole life. And Scotland Yard. I still have my childhood copy of Scotland Yard. I think it still holds up as my favorite hidden movement game. I think it's hidden movement distilled down to exactly what I want it to be. And I have my childhood copy on my shelf here. I guess chess would be the other one. I played chess a lot as a fairly young age. And so I still occasionally play chess. Mark says, will there be a standard and deluxe version printing for your version of Tokaido? No, there won't be. And that's why at Essen Spiel, we're kind of saying, if you want the deluxe version of Tokaido, the last two copies that are available are at Essen Spiel. We do not plan on making the deluxe version of Tokaido. It's a beautiful version of the game. I love what they did with it, but we're going to focus on the standard, one single standard version of Tokaido, which will essentially be this, but with the solo mode included. And again, I'll repeat, if you don't have Tokaido and you're excited that Stonemaier Games now has Tokaido and you see it on sale, if you want to get a copy right now, you can definitely do that. That is totally fine. Everything that we make will be completely compatible with it. And if you want the solo mode that we're making for it, for our version of Tokaido, that will be available separately. So you can just add it onto your existing copy of Tokaido, completely compatible. Andy says, what are your hopes for a new game in the Tokaido series? So one of the things I'm really excited about is working with Antoine Bauza on what I'm considering a third game. Really, it's a fourth game in the Tokaido series, but there's Tokaido and Namiji. The third game is the third game that I'm thinking of. But there's also Tokaido Duo, which is a great third game existing in the series. I just consider it kind of a spin-off of Tokaido itself rather than a third game in the what I think of as like a Tokaido trilogy. My goal for my aim that I'm working on with Antoine, just early conversations at this point, is to have a heavier version of Tokaido, or a heavier game in the Tokaido line. Not quite the weight of Great Western Trail, which is another game that I think of in comparison to Tokaido because it has that one-way action selection track. Not quite that heavy, but on the way there to a Great Western Trail. So yeah, that's what my hope is for, but we'll see what actually comes of it, because anything can happen during the design process. But that's the initial kind of the foundation that we're working on right now in our early conversations. I see David is joining us here a little bit. David is instrumental on the Automa team for Tokaido and other games. I think Morton was maybe the lead for Tokaido Automa, but David was certainly involved. Tim says, will we be getting promo realms for the Tokaido series? You most definitely will. Yeah, we are working on a Tokaido realm. And actually, Tim, I'm glad you mentioned that. So our original intention was actually not to announce Tokaido today. Typically, as you know, I announce new products when we're actually ready to sell them or sell our version of them. And that is not today. Today, we have existing copies of Tokaido that are on the market that, again, will be completely compatible with everything that we make. But my intention was to announce it sometime in 2025 when our version is ready. And at that time, Tim, we were going to have, or we will have, our promo realm for Rolling Realms for Tokaido along with it. So normally all that stuff would happen during the announcement, but because we found that there were copies of Tokaido Deluxe that we thought Essen was the perfect time to sell them. That is why we're announcing it now, kind of a softer announcement. Let's see. Zachary says, was there any consideration opportunity for FunForge Games to acquire the Monumental IP from FunForge as well? No, we were solely focused on Tokaido. I don't know much about Monumental. I've never played it, but I've played Tokaido dozens of times. Jeff says, you plan on getting a badge for Geekway Mini when they go on sale on Saturday. So, Jeff, here's my thought on it. I'm debating something right now, and I'll throw it out to you. I'm debating going to either Geekway Mini this January or going to Tantrum Con in North Carolina. Now, Jeff, I know you're in St. Louis. I know where you would. I know you're going to Geekway Mini. I think you're going to try to go. I'm excited about the prospect, but I'm also, I've been wanting to try a few more open gaming conventions around the country, around the world even. And Tantrum Con is one of those that's on my list that I'm thinking about. So my answer is maybe. I want to attend one of those conventions, and I'm open to anyone watching today if you have an opinion as to which one, if I should branch out and try a new open gaming convention, or if I should do something that's comfortable and familiar here in St. Louis with Geekway Mini. I know I would have fun at Geekway Mini. I've attended it before. It's a great time. It is a lot smaller than the main Geekway, but I'm also considering Tantrum Con in North Carolina, also in January. I think it's like 1 week after Geekway Mini. I don't want to do both. I know that I don't want to do both. Let's see. I can stop holding up this box for a little bit. Chris says, wanted to pop in with a question. I finished designing a poker-themed tableau builder yesterday. That's exciting. Since arriving at work, I've come up with 6 card ideas. At one point in the design, do you cut off any new ideas and run with what you've come up with? Very late in the process is when I stop thinking about new ideas. Even fairly late in playtesting and development, if I have something new that I think is important to the game, is fun for the game, I'll at least test it and consider it and brainstorm it. Yeah, so right up until we get into production, pretty much. Yeah, sometimes even after production, after pre-production at least. Fitzbraun says, is Tokaido Path? Tokaido is Path. The codename Path is Tokaido. I need to update that on our website after I get up to this live cast. That is correct. Yeah. Nate says, was Tokaido something you teased in your beginning of the year teaser list? No, we didn't know that that Tokaido was an option at that time. Fitzbraun asked a question that I answered a few seconds ago, but just in case you missed it, any plans to do a blinged out edition like the Kickstarter from a few years ago? No, the last 2 copies of Tokaido Deluxe will be at Essen Spiel, and we just plan on making one version of the game. Honestly, even though it is a super blinged out version, I think that the version of Tokaido, the standard version, is really nice. I don't know if it quite feels like a deluxe game, but it feels like a Stonemaier game to me in terms of the component quality, the look and feel of the components, and especially the art in the game. Tim says, have you watched Floor Plan, a game show hosted by Rob Lowe? Currently, first season, they had an amateur board game designer as one of the contestants. I'm curious about his games. I believe so. I believe this is the game show that had Mondo on it. Is this Mondo that you're talking about? Not entirely sure if that's the one, but Mondo. I have not watched the show yet, But Mondo has attended Design Day a few years in a row now. He was at Design Day recently, and he's also a very popular TikToker. Yeah, really nice guy, if that's the person that you're thinking of. Real quick, actually, before I get to other questions, well, no, I'll just keep going with questions. I have some topics that I mentioned in the subject line today, but I'll do a few more questions and then I'll keep going. Steven says, have you discovered house rules to Stonemaier Games that felt like they could have been in the rules from the start? Very rarely, but sometimes. Let's see if I know there's one that comes to mind. Let me think if there's any others real quick as I think about it. So there are, yeah, I would say there's two that come to mind. The two are, one was for Euphoria. In Euphoria, one house rule that came up after we published Euphoria was that if you want to use if you want to place multiple dice on your turn that show the same dice face. So if you start your turn in Euphoria where you have 2 4s, dice in your supply with 4 on them, then the standard rule is that you can just place both of those dice. The house rule is that for you to be able to leverage that luck of rolling doubles, of placing that second die, you need to spend a morale to do so. And as soon as I heard that house rule, I was like, that's really good. That's a really good house rule. And so we added it kind of officially to the game in the expansion. So that is something that I think should have been in there from the start. And the other one with Scythe, a variant that I think is a really good, smart variant for Roosviet. Oh, what is the variant? It's been a while since I thought about this variant, but there's a house rule variant for Roosviet related to, I believe, the factory card for Roosviet. I'm blanking on it exactly right now. That's one that I don't really use. The APR expansion does have one too that I don't think was brought up as a house rule, but we did add a recommended variant in the APR expansion, which is that you can't play more than 2 seed cards per turn in apiary. So, but again, I don't know if that was actually a house rule, but it is something that we added to the expansion. Mark, talking about Tokaido here, he says, is it just a straight reprint or will we be adding stuff to it? It is neither of those two things. Give me a third option, Mark, because the correct answer is it is our version of Tokaido will be almost identical to this version of Tokaido in terms of, it is identical in terms of gameplay and mechanisms. I revamped the rules a bit. I added some text to some character cards so that you don't have to interpret the icons or go to the rulebook for the icons, character tiles. And we added a solo mode, which we'll be selling separately as well. Garrett says, any new to you games over the last week that you really enjoy? Thank you, Garrett, for the prompt for one of the topics of the subject line today, which was Creature Caravan. So over the past week, I played actually a few games that I really, really liked. I played Let's Go to Japan, which I played before. I love Let's Go to Japan. Played 2 new games. One was Caravan, which I just played yesterday. Really, really good tableau building game. It's largely a game about playing cards so that you can play other cards. The cards don't have abilities on them. They just have icons on them so you can play other cards. It's about kind of the food chain in wildlife, the circle of life, essentially. Really good game. However, edging it just a little bit is Creature Caravan, which I really, really loved. Creature Caravan. I was really excited to show Megan, so I played it. I learned it and played it, and I taught and played it with Megan. Creature Caravan is also a tableau building game with fantastical creatures, whimsical creatures from Ryan Lockett's Red Raven universe. And it's I've had a good time so far. I really, really enjoyed Creature Caravan. So that's one of the games over the last week that I really enjoyed. And I have my board game arena game night tonight, and I'm hoping, I might need to learn it in advance, but I'm hoping to play River of Gold, which I found out was on Board Game Arena. That's one that I've been really excited to play. I've heard it compared a little bit to Lords of Waterdeep, a game that I love. So I'm excited to try that if it is available on Board Game Arena. Nicholas is asking, what's your pre-mortem for the Tokaido initiative? Well, Nicholas, you may have heard me mention this a few minutes ago. Our plan wasn't to announce Tokaido today. So we have already been working on our version of Tokaido for quite some time now. And so we did get feedback from people about it leading up to it. But a pre-mortem at this point would be a little bit too late because we've already entered production on our version of Tokaido. So one thing that I've learned is not to ask questions if you can't actually act on them. So we asked the questions about what we should do to update Tokaido in advance. And really part of the decision in acquiring Tokaido was we didn't want a game that we would have to revamp all that much. So one of the wonderful things about Tokaido is that we didn't need to do much at all to it. We wanted to add a solo mode. I wanted to clarify the rules a little bit, clarify some icons, but the gameplay, the art, I think are perfect as is. Yeah. Jess says, how happy are you that you finally have a game with a Japanese theme? That definitely checks a big box for me. Yeah, I do love the Japanese theme of Tokaido. Yeah. Oh, Nicole mentioned Creature Caravan as well. She says, it's been my obsession since its arrival, and I was delighted to see your favorite mechanism video. It will offer lots of replayability. I agree, Nicole. Yeah, I still haven't seen every card in the deck, and the strategies that I've seen employed so far have been very different in Creature Caravan. So I think there's a lot of replayability there. I'm really loving it. Ian says, will Tokaido include Automa in the box at any point? Yes, that is the #1 difference between the current version of Tokaido and our version of Tokaido. The version of that for Stonemaier Games will have Automa solo mode in the box. We'll also sell that solo mode, those solo mode components separately for people who already own Tokaido. Scootman says, was the acquisition of Tokaido contingent on the designers working on a new game in the line? No, we can't control what the designers do. We can just control what Funforged owned, which was the rights to the brand itself. Let's see. Stacy says, I have the 5th anniversary edition of Tokaido, the second of the 3 versions of the game. Yeah, I believe this is the 10th anniversary version. Just wondering if the Stonemaier versions of Crossroads will be compatible. They will. Yeah, currently I think there are actually enough copies of Crossroads and Matsuri, the 2 expansions, on the market that that we don't plan on making them for now, but eventually we probably will make them, and they'll be the same. They'll be completely compatible. Actually, no, I don't want to say they'll be the same. They'll be completely compatible, because if they do have character tiles in them, the thing that we're adding to the character tiles on the back of the tiles is text that explains what the icons mean, so you don't have to refer to the rulebook. Michelle also brought up a Rolling Realms Tokaido realm, which we are working on. That'll be available with Tokaido when we publish it. Although I'm going to make a note about that. I just realized that we may be a little bit behind. Yeah, I need to check with the artist on the Tokaido realm. I think we're a little bit behind on that, so we might need to catch up a little bit. There will be a Stonemaier Games disc golf disc for Tokaido as well. Michelle says, will you re-release the mobile Tokaido? So we have transitioned so previously Funforge published, they created and published the digital version of Tokaido. And I don't know why my Zoom just went out for some reason. There we go. So we have transitioned those digital files over to another digital publisher, and they will be releasing all the digital stuff for Tokaido from now on. Yeah. Carlos says, how are you going to handle Tokaido Duo, since typically Stonemaier Games go up to 5 players, maybe something like Wingspan Asia? Honestly, I think the plan is that we're just going to make Tokaido Duo with an Automa solo mode. I agree that it does not fit into our typical set of games with set player counts, but as a spin-off to Tokaido, I think it's a nice exception to the rule that and it really is. It's a really cool game. I don't know if you played Tokaido Duo, but it is a really neat version of Tokaido. Like, it isn't just a 2-player version of Tokaido. It adds you have 3 different tracks essentially that you're moving on instead of just 1 track like in Tokaido. It's a really neat game. So we're essentially just going to make the same thing, but with a solo mode included. Yeah. Peter says, how long do we have to wait for Stonemaier version of Tokaido, and will it play pretty much the same? Well, #1, I would say you don't have to wait. If you're curious about Tokaido, you can go get it. Everything that we make will be compatible with it. If you really want the solo mode, we'll be selling that separately. So you don't have to wait at all. If you do want to wait for the Stonemaier version, which will have the solo mode included in the box, that'll be sometime next year, in the first half of 2025. We are in pre-production right now. Let's see. One of the other topics I mentioned in the subject line today, I have Essen up there, obviously, Essen Spiel. I'll go back over that in case you're joining right now rather than earlier. Stonemaier Games is at Essen Spiel at booth 3U411. This is the big convention in Germany, or a very big convention in Germany, that my coworkers Dave and Alex are at, along with a wonderful demo team and Inside Up. We're sharing the booth with Inside Up. We're over there, or Stonemaier Games is there at Essen Spiel right now. So feel free to drop by to get any of our 20 24 releases, along with the last few copies of Tokaido Deluxe, which is what we're talking about today. There's also the other big thing in the newsletter was the Wingspan expansion survey. Yeah. Just wanted to highlight that real quick. Jeremy asked about Tokaido promo materials. I actually don't know that much about the promo materials of Tokaido, Jeremy. I don't know if there's anything specific that you're thinking of, but if it is compatible with the standard version of Tokaido, yeah, certainly we're happy to make it. Probably not by themselves. It might be the type of thing that we include with Crossroads or Matsuri. Yeah. Adrian says, what's been your highest score in Tokaido? I don't track my scores, so I don't really know. I'm sure I've won some games. I'm sure I've lost some games of Tokaido. I really don't know. That's a good question. I really have no idea what my score range is for Tokaido. Paige also asked, will there be a Rolling Realm? And yes, there will be a Rolling Realm for Tokaido. LB Jeeper says, on Board Game Geek, there's a forum post asking to train their AI in playtesting using people's games. If an AI proves to be useful for playtesting, would you use it? Yeah, I've actually said this is one of the few uses of AI that I'm a little bit curious about, not at all in replacing human playtesters, not even close, but for kind of a crash testing asymmetry. If there's ever a way that I can feed the files for a game into an AI and say, hey, play 10,000 games of this in the next day and let me know how the balance works out for these different factions. Yeah, I definitely use that. That's something that we can't replicate with human playtesters. We can playtest it a lot, but we can't playtest it 10,000 times in a day. So if that is ever an option for brute force playtesting asymmetry, yeah, I would be curious to use that. Again, in addition to human playtesters, though. Crucial caveat there. Yeah. Mark says, with Tokaido being the second modern classic game acquired by your company, how many more games are you open to acquiring before you say we have enough? And I wouldn't entirely say that I think about it that way, Mark. I see what you're getting at, but like it wasn't on our radar to go seeking an acquisition of Tokaido. It wasn't like, okay, well, we've got to get another modern classic and Stonemaier Games and make our version of it. It was more like the opportunity came up and we thought it was a good fit. So if another great opportunity comes up and we think it's a great fit, I might be open to it. But it is not something that we're actively pursuing, for sure. Tony says, does the license include other incarnations like Tokaido Duo or Namiji? Yes, it includes the entire Tokaido brand. Yeah. Okay, Tim is remembering the rule that I was trying to think of for the house rule for Scythe is that no back-to-back use of the factory for Roosfiat. And I think you're right there, Tim. Thank you. Oh, yeah. There's a variant that I really like in Red Rising. Garrett says, in Red Rising, there's a variant where a player can't force you to lose a card if you go below your starting hand size. That is something that that I added as an official variant. I think it did originate as a house rule. And that's one that I really do like that one. In fact, I think we added it to the rule book for the reprint of Red Rising. I think. Don't hold me to that. I know it's on our website. Chad says, have you looked into the new Mistborn deck building game yet? The way they are addressing the metals looks very interesting so far. I haven't really looked into it, but it is one that I definitely want to play when it comes out. David says, how common is it for a brand to change hands in the way that you did, in the way that happened with Tokaido? Were there other successful or problematic ones that you looked to when making the decision to acquire Tokaido? We talked about a lot of different things, for sure, when we were discussing if it was something that we wanted to do. I would say it isn't all that common, but it does happen for different reasons, for different circumstances. But I'm trying to think, are any specific examples that we looked to when debating it? I don't think we really did. I think we looked at specifically Tokaido and how it fit for Stonemaier Games. Yeah. Jack says he's hopeful that the Tokaido metal coins will be available again someday. They're actually very similar to some of the Scythe metal coins, the $1 coins, but we do plan on making the Tokaido metal coins at some point too. Fitzbraun says, when acquiring a game like this, how do you determine how much of a market there still is for a game that's been previously widely available? That was a big question. Yeah. Are we getting a game that everyone who ever wants it will already have it? And I don't think so. I'm kind of betting on that not being the case. Tokaido sells pretty consistently year to year, a specific amount year to year. And we're hoping that it continues to sell that amount year to year for the foreseeable future. So how do you determine that? It's a guessing game. We don't really know, but we know that we can support the game and do the same things that FunForge was doing, plus hopefully some things that FunForge wasn't able to do or wasn't doing. And hopefully that market is still there. I think the thing to remember is that people discover games all the time. People discover Wingspan all the time. People discover Scythe all the time. Scythe has been out for years now, almost 10 years. People still discover Scythe. Viticulture has been out for 12 years. People still discover Viticulture. So if you put in the effort to make classic games available, these evergreen games, essentially, I think there's a major appeal for people who are entering the hobby all the time to get those classic evergreen games that it feels like everyone knows because they want their own copy of it as well. So we're kind of betting on that. Oh, William loves River Gold. Awesome. Thank you, William, for offering to teach that. He says, I won against the designer at Gen Con. That's pretty cool. And he gave me his blessing to make a solo fan expansion, which he posted on Board Game Geek. That's awesome, William. Really cool all around. Yeah, that's really cool. If you're available for game night tonight, I'd love to play it. Ray's bringing up something that happened in the U.S. recently, the longshoremen strike on the East Coast. He says, do you anticipate the strike having an impact on Stonemaier Games, or do you think things will be all right with not having any major releases for the rest of the year? We don't ship to the East Coast of the U.S., so we ship to the West Coast. So the strike will not directly impact us, but it will certainly impact our prices. Or not our price, I'm sorry, our cost, our shipping cost. It won't impact the prices that you pay. It'll impact our shipping costs because container costs are going to go up as a result. That said, I think there are valid reasons for the strike as well. So I'm not bemoaning the strike itself. I'm just saying that it will impact us, at least as a company. It will not impact you as a consumer for Stonemaier Games, at least. Unless it goes on for a really long time, and then you never know. Scootman says, you've already said that you're making no gameplay changes to Tokaido, but was there any discussion about rebalancing the characters? We did. I mean, I looked into a lot of different discussions about Tokaido and how people feel about different characters and different cards, different strategies. And we decided that there were no necessary gameplay changes to Tokaido. So there are no gameplay changes, no changes to the art. Yeah, but we did look into it. I looked into a lot of people have a lot of opinions about Tokaido that we looked into going into this. Steve says, saw something online. Someone online mention a second expansion for Expeditions. Is this something that's being worked on, or are you guys not sure if there another expansion is coming out yet? So, Steve, I'll show you why that was mentioned. If you look at the, I'll pull up the newsletter on my other screen here. We'll scroll down. So here is the progress chart. You can see Stamp Shop APR expansion at the top. Both of these are at Essen Spiel, and they have their retail release, their brick and mortar retail release on October 11th. Their online retail release on October 25th. But if you scroll it, I need to change out path. Path is Tokaido. Again, you can see it lower down on the progress chart because our version of Tokaido won't be ready until 2025. And then way down here, you can see at the bottom that I have added an Expeditions expansion to the progress chart. We are actively working on it. In fact, I would say the design for it, I'm the designer for it, is complete. Very much in the playtesting and development stage of it at this point. Yeah. Adrian says, will the Stonemaier version of Tokaido be more similar to the retail or the deluxe version? It will be the retail version of Tokaido. That's, yeah, the retail version. And not just similar, like it will be the retail version of Tokaido. Chad says, will you still be able to insert some feline travelers in your version of Tokaido? Maybe the Automa player is themed as a group of stray orange cats. So honestly, so part of transitioning to a new brand like this is being, in my opinion, I want to be aware of the time of the designer and the artist. And so I didn't ask anything of Antoine. I didn't ask anything of Naide. So I did not ask for any art to be added to Tokaido. But if we do, and hopefully when we do make a third game in the Tokaido line, or fourth game, I'll say fourth game in the Tokaido line. Yeah, I'm hoping my cats will make an appearance in that. Absolutely. A few people have confirmed that it was Mondo on floor plan. And yeah, so I was forgetting the name of the show that he was on, but yeah, he was indeed on floor plan. Mark says, will there be a Tokaido Duo Realm and Namiji Realm 2 when they come out? I don't know about that, Mark. Maybe, but definitely a Tokaido realm. Yeah. David says, another house rule you incorporate in Tapestry, there's a variant to draw 2 tapestries at the start and keep 1, or 2 civs and keep 1. I don't know if there's ever, I don't ever condone a variant to keep 2 tapestry cards at the start, David, but to draw 2 civs and keep 1. Yeah, I can't even remember now if that is a standard rule or just or a variant of Tokaido. But for tapestry cards in Tokaido, I'm fully an advocate of only drawing 1 tapestry card at any time that you ever draw a tapestry card, not 2. For the advanced capital city mats, you do draw 1 normal and 1 advanced capital city mat, and you choose between them. I can't remember if there's a standard choice for the civ mats or not, though. Yeah. Andy says, since playing Star Wars The Deck Building Clone Wars, have you been enjoying how you can mix and match which sides are facing each other? Eager for potential card pool expanding for different factions? I have, yes. So Megan and I we've played the game 3 times so far. So we played, so in Star Wars Deck Building The Clone Wars, you have 2 factions. You have the Separatists and you have the Republic. We played both of them back to back. And then we decided, okay, what if we play the Separatists, which are kind of the bad guys in Clone Wars, versus the Empire, the bad guys of the original Star Wars deck building game, to see which one would win. And the Separatists won that matchup. So currently the Separatists are at the top of the list of the strongest factions in our household, at least for Star Wars deck building. So yeah, I am excited that you can mix and match those factions in that way, and also mix and match the neutral deck. You pick one of the neutral decks to play with. Thank you, Jeremy, for clarifying. The Tokaido promos are 2 characters and instead of 4 encounter cards. That's good to know. Yeah, we'll look into maybe putting them along with the expansions when we do that. Chad says, it seems like Between Two Cities was your intro game for the longest time. Still probably one of our, other than Smitten here, probably one of our shortest games. He says, will Tokaido now be your top gateway game that you reference for new players getting into gaming? I think Tokaido is a really good gateway game. Maybe Gateway Plus. I put it right on the edge there between the two. But I think it is a really, really good game for someone who's fairly new to gaming to try out. Yeah. Okay, Garrett clarifies that 2 civs and keep 1 is a standard rule, not a house rule, just part of the game. I thought it was. Thought it sounded familiar. Ray says, so Ray's asking for details about the Expeditions expansion. Way too early for that at this point, Ray. I appreciate your curiosity, but yeah, definitely too early for me to talk about the Expeditions expansion at this point. Brian's also finding that the Separatist and Star Wars deck building are pretty strong. Chad says, have you noticed the many similarities of Tokaido and Sushi Go? While teaching it, I find myself comparing a lot of the tableau building to Sushi Go. The temple is just like the pudding cards. That's true. The set collection, it uses some classic set collection elements. So I can see the comparison there for sure. The one other thing I mentioned in the subject line that I haven't gotten to is the Wild Robot. We actually watched 3 really good movies over the weekend. And yeah, not even ranking them, but I would say the Wild Robot is the one that's in the theaters right now. And I really, really enjoyed it. I laughed, I cried. It's a beautiful movie to watch. It's basically about a robot that crashes in a forest and hijinks ensue, including some things about parenthood and childhood that are really moving, really touching. One thing I do want to mention about the Wild Robot, because the trailer doesn't convey this, and I think it's a pretty important thing to convey. There is dialogue in the movie. In fact, there's a lot of dialogue in the movie because the robot is able to translate what the animals are saying. And so you get to have conversations between the robot and the animals. And that dialogue ends up being really, really important to the movie, I would say. So the trailer does not convey that. If you were hesitant about the movie for any reason, or for that reason, because you thought, okay, this is going to be a movie where they don't talk at all, that is not true. They talk a lot, and the dialogue is great. It's funny, it's moving, it's touching. I highly recommend seeing The Wild Robot in the theater. The other 2 movies we watch, which aren't in the theater, at least one of them definitely isn't, is Rebel Ridge on Netflix. In fact, both of these are Netflix movies. Rebel Ridge, pretty intense mystery, thriller, slight action movie, kind of a modern Rambo in a way. Really good. Longer than I thought. It's about 2.5 hours. So you're in for a long evening if you watch this movie, but very good. And we also watched Will and Harper, which is a really touching road trip documentary movie about Will Ferrell and his friend who Will knew for many years as a man while working at not Stonemaier Games, SNL, and his friend transitioned into a woman, and Will Ferrell was like, "Hey, why don't we take a road trip together? I want to get to know you. I want to get to know the new you, or the you that's always been here, but I didn't get to know in the same way." It's a really beautiful movie. They talk about some really important things about transgender people and the transitioning process, and about friendship. And so if any of that is uncomfortable to you in any way, I think the movie is especially important to watch. I highly recommend it. But if it isn't uncomfortable to you, then I think it's a great movie to watch too. I think it's okay to be uncomfortable or comfortable, and embrace it by watching this movie, Will and Harper, on Netflix. Highly recommend it. Anthony says, any quick tips for developing a game? What's a quick tip for developing a game? When you playtest, ask questions and listen. I think that's the key when playtesting. There's one. But I also recommend going to watch my video about, go to the Stonemaier Games YouTube channel and search for prototyping, playtesting, development. I think if you look for those three terms, or even just development, you'll see a video that goes into depth about my tips for how to develop a game. Developing a game is how you take a game that already exists, a game that's already fully designed, and you make it even more fun, even more balanced, even more intuitive. Designing a game is when you start from scratch and build the game up to something that is playable and fun and functional. Devil's Treasure says, could you talk about how you monitor the balance for powers or scoring during playtesting? Actually, a little bit tied to development here. For Stamp Swap, my group found some of the special powers too strong compared to others, causing a runaway win. This is one of the keys in Stamp Swap, that the powers and the tiles are not balanced, and that is by design, because it's an I cut you choose drafting game. So you have the choice first to draft something, and you also have the choice to where you group it and how you group things. Now, I know for powers, everything other than rare stamps, you can reserve one of those things for yourself. So you could draft something that you think is really powerful and keep it for yourself and not make it eligible for I Cut You Choose, but it's still available in the draft. How do we monitor the balance? We playtest a lot. And then we analyze the data from playtesting to see if anything is an outlier, see if anything is standing out as either mathematically or anecdotally underpowered or overpowered. Obviously, some things can still slip through the cracks a little bit, but I think that's one of the nice things about a game where you're drafting and doing I Cut You Choose. That slight imbalances make those things more interesting, rather than if everything kind of feels the same. Oh, Ian brought up Will and Harper as well. Yeah, I was talking about that a second ago, Ian. Edward says, in one of your recent videos, you talk about writing rule books. When in the process do you write your rule book? Do you try to do it right away, or do you wait until the game smooths out? So I've actually found, Edward, that my process for writing rule books is that when I'm playtesting the game locally, I try to only write a reference card or a reference sheet. And I try to see if I can explain everything that a player needs to know about the game, with me there as a teacher, from a reference card or a reference sheet. And I think that helps me keep games relatively streamlined. However, it's when I need to enter blind playtesting that I write the full rulebook, because one of the things that I'm getting from blind playtesting is I am not there. I'm testing the rulebook just as much as I am testing the mechanisms of the game. That's when I have to write the rulebook, because someone can't just learn a game from a reference card, even though they could play the game from a reference card with the teacher there. So yeah, it's right at the blind playtesting process that I write the rulebook. Mark says, we will be on the lookout for the usual Easter eggs on the Tokaido Stonemaier Games version. Yeah, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, Mark, that no, I didn't want to bother the artist or the designer for our version of Tokaido, given that they'd already done the work on it. They've already made the art, they've already made the game. And so I did not ask for new art to be added to it. No. Corey says, this is a joke about Rebel Ridge. That's great. They seem to make it seem like quite a big deal, Corey, in the movie. Chad says, you have a treasure in Joe, my coworker Joe. He recently helped me out a lot, figure out some stuff. That's wonderful. I'm glad that we were able to help you out in that way. And I agree that Joe is a treasure. Daniel says, decided to get serious about my games and publishing them. I took on a business loan from an investor to pay for our game art in the Gen Con booth for 2025. Super excited to show the game off soon. That's exciting, Daniel. That's very exciting. And yeah, I certainly wish you the best in your journey. That's definitely a risk to take early on, but I'm excited for you, and I hope you use some of the resources that I have available on Stonemaier Games to help you on that journey. I'm always there in the comments to answer any questions you have. So yeah, and one of the reasons I'm mentioning this a little bit is that I would recommend not waiting to show off your game. I would recommend talking about it early and often, especially for the first game, to start building interest, curiosity, enthusiasm, and community around that game. Yeah. Joshua says, could someone submit a prototype to Stonemaier Games while not having sufficient playtesting resources? In other words, could Stonemaier handle playtesting, or would the designer need local players? We would not even consider a game that has not been playtested. Not at all. I mean, any game, even that, I've designed many games at this point. The first playtest of any game is terrible. It does not work out. And so a key part of the design, like, you haven't designed a game if you have not playtested it, Joshua. So a game absolutely needs to be playtested. We say at least, I believe, 10 times before you submit it to us, because we don't want a game that hasn't been playtested. We don't want a game that someone's only playtested once even. That's just barely entering the design process at that point. Now, for blind playtest, we ask for 1 or 2 blind playtests. That is a lot harder to manage as just an individual designer. I think that's largely the responsibility of the publisher. However, I think it is still highly valuable for a designer to have at least 1 blind playtest to make sure the rulebook is clear enough, and really just the user interface of the game is clear enough without the designer there for us to play the game. Because if the game gets far enough in our submission process that we actually play the prototype and we find it to be unplayable, or we find the rules to be unusable, that's the one shot the game got. That's it. So that is a very important part of the process, to make sure that someone else can play the game without you there as the designer. Anthony says, have you watched Transformers 1? I've not watched it, but it's gotten great reviews. I'm not really all that into Transformers. That isn't an IP that really excites me, but seeing reviews like that makes me want to watch the movie for sure. Andy says, have you seen or heard of Hundreds of Beavers? Kind of an inversion of The Wild Robot and one of the silliest films of the year. I have not heard of Hundreds of Beavers. No, I'll have to check that out. I know nothing about that one. Peter says, he has the Tokaido Deluxe Edition and Duo, so I was mainly wondering if your version was going to be much different, and the box is going to be smaller, as mine is huge. So this is the Tokaido box, the 10th anniversary box. This is kind of standard box size, but actually a little bit even thinner. This will be the same box size that we use for Tokaido. And no, it won't be much different. It'll have the solo mode, which we're going to sell separately. It has a revised rulebook. I went through the rulebook and I did some pretty heavy revisions, not for clarity, not for gameplay, but for clarity in the rulebook. And the character tiles, I added text to the back of the character tiles so that you can just flip it over and see what the icons mean, rather than trying to decipher them or looking at the rulebook. That's it. Edward says, when you do a playthrough of a submission, do you play it digitally on the table or a mix of both? We've gotten more flexible about this over the years. Ideally, we play it on the tabletop, but it is a lot to ask the designer to ship the game to us, for me to ask Alan to learn the game from the rulebook, yeah, it's just a lot. So oftentimes that happens. We do ask for that often, but we are open at times to playing the game on Tabletopia with the designer if that is an option. Sometimes that's just nice. I know it does not give us a good test of how the rulebook works, because we have the designer there to teach us the game, and I never think the digital experience is as good as the tabletop experience, even for a prototype. Excuse me, but we do it sometimes. Sometimes it's just easier to get that first play in and to see if we want to learn more about the game, if we want to get it to the table again, to have that even just a 30-minute demo of the game with the publisher or with the designer can really help. Yeah. So Joshua, thank you for explaining where your question is coming from. He says, he has minimal people in his life who can playtest, and his social anxiety keeps me from going to local game shops to show off early prototypes. Just curious. I hear that. I hear that that's a barrier and a challenge. And I relate to that. Yeah, absolutely. As an introvert myself, and someone with social anxiety. But it is really important to find even just, and really one of the things for me Joshua, was when I found my friend Alan was excited to do more than one playtest with me. Ended up being, my business partner, Stonemaier Games. That was a key moment that I found someone else that I didn't feel guilty playtesting with. That really helped. So if you can find even that one person who is willing to playtest with you, who is just as excited to playtest with you as you are, that can be all you need. Find that one person. Yeah. So good luck finding that person. Let's see. What other topics have I not covered today? I think I covered most everything. I'm still reading the book Impossible Creatures. I'm still enjoying that. I know I don't have a question of the day today. I was looking at tomorrow's blog post. I don't necessarily really have a blog post for tomorrow yet, so I don't know what tomorrow's topic is. I did do a blog post actually that came from the last week's livecast. Someone asked me, what is something that was unexpected that you learned about customers since starting Stonemaier Games? I answered that last week, and then I thought a lot more about it and did a blog post about it on Monday. And it was a really great post. I really liked writing that one. So that was a great question. I always appreciate the questions that you all ask me about these sorts of things. Also today is Pendulum's anniversary. Pendulum's initial release was in 2020. October 2nd, 2020 was the retail release for Pendulum. And it is, that's today. That's in 2024, 4 years later. So happy anniversary to Pendulum today. Garrett says he playtested the game digitally recently, and while it was extremely convenient and great for teaching people remotely, we didn't particularly enjoy the experience and felt we got more out of the physical version. That resonates with me too. I think there's so much more you can learn from the tabletop version. I think it's a great resource to have, but I highly encourage anyone who's designing the game to not rely solely on their digital playtest, to get the game to the table at key milestones during the design process as well, not just on a place like Tabletopia. Edward says, I recently watched your Kickstarter video for viticulture. I just wanted to say it was funny and clever and made me laugh. Thank you. It was a spoof on the Sideways movie trailer, the movie Sideways, which I haven't watched in a long time. And yeah, if you want to see a very young, terrible actor version of Jamey, still a terrible actor today, then you can go watch that very first Kickstarter video from 2012 for viticulture. Okay, Peter says his version has 35 different player tokens. Are we doing the same route? So the player tokens, are you talking about the, I mean, not that I know of, Peter. In Tokaido, there really aren't that many player tokens necessary. There's the meeples. Every player has one meeple. And then you have a token that you put, like a colored token that you put on your character mat. So no, we don't have many character tokens at all in the game. Maybe they just went for variety in the deluxe version, but we definitely don't have that here. Oh, I think in the deluxe version, they had a different character token for every character in the game. We definitely don't do that in the standard version. Moniker says, have you gotten a chance to play a round of disc golf at Maple Hill, where the disc golf tournament was this past weekend, I believe? That was a fun tournament to watch. But no, I haven't played disc golf anywhere on the East. Actually, no, I played on the East Coast in North Carolina, the Outer Banks, and in Virginia, but not anywhere up north yet. But I really want to. The course looks stunning. I definitely want to try that course at some point. All right. Thank you all for your questions today. Yeah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you hanging out for the last hour. If you are watching this video in the future, feel free to ask me anything you want in the comments below. I'm happy to answer. And yeah, have a great day. Have a great Wednesday. Have a great Essen Spiel. Let me know your highlights from Essen if you are attending there. And check out our booth. Go by our booth. Just say hi. Even if you already have all the Stonemaier stuff and you don't want to demo anything, stop by and say hi. I know that Dave and our demo team will appreciate that. All right. Have a great week. I'll see you later. Bye.